Hello and welcome to MLOps Minutes. In this episode, I'm going to introduce you to environment variables under Windows. It's really important to master environment variables because you'll be using them on a daily basis. Then I'm going to introduce the path variable, which will allow us to switch between two versions of Python. Here we go, Windows Plugin. We arrive on the desktop. I'm going to open a CMD type command prompt and write the first command echo space cuckoo, which will display cuckoo. Here it is. I'll create a first variable. Set a space demo, therefore a variable called demo. Everyone is the value we're going to assign to it. What happens is that now I can echo hello, percentage demo, percentage to display the variable. I'm going to save this value, which displays cuckoo everyone. So now I've created my first variable, which is linked solely to my command prompt. So it's linked to its life cycle, i.e., if I close my command prompt and open it again, if I display my command again, my variable no longer exists. Fortunately, there are system variables. If you search for system, you open the control panel, then click on Advanced System Parameters, Environment Variable. Here you can see that there are two types of environment variables. System variables which are shared by all users of my machine, my granddaughter, me, and variables that are specific to me, i.e. my user variables which only I can have. Let's go and create our first demo variable of type system and write cuckoo system. Here it is. So you have to validate the screen for it to be taken into account. And then what happens is that the command prompt loads the environment variables on startup. In other words, it's not going to be taken hot. It won't be hot updated. The command prompt still doesn't know about it, so I have to close it again. That I rerun it to rewrite my echo cuckoo demo command, and now it'll show me cuckoo system. I'm happy. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a user variable, so demo cuckoo Guillaume. Okay. And now it's the same. My command prompt only loads variables at startup, so I won't get the update. I'll have to close it. My command prompt. And once again, I can do echo cuckoo demo. And then I've got my user variable. So what happens is that I've overloaded the system variable. In other words, my user variable has taken precedence over the system variable, and that's interesting. That's it for this part. Now what happens is that it can often happen that you're working on different projects and you need to switch between different versions of Python. For example, if I do Python -- version, I have access to Python 3.11.2. But how can Python be the Python executable accessible from this command prompt? Well, it's quite simple thanks to the path variable. In fact, what's happening here is that there's a special variable that can be displayed as echo. Path. It's made up of lots of paths separated by semicolons. And what's going to happen is that we'll have to look for the Python executable, but we'll go through the interface, which is much simpler. Here we're going to modify, and you'll get a list of top paths that you can browse from top to bottom. And here, for example, I can see the road to Python 3.11. We'll look at what comes inside. And inside you can see the Python executable. You can even look at the script directory here. You can see lots of tools, including pip.exe, which is available here. In fact, what's going to happen is that all the directories accessible here, well, the command prompt will scan all the executables and .bat files it finds in top to bottom order, and the first Python type executable it sees will be the one it returns. That's why we have Python 3.11.2 today, because it's what's being promoted. If I move up the variable, the path to Python 3, and here it is, and I validate my change of variable, what's going to happen is that it won't be updated because my command prompt needs to be reloaded. So I reloaded it, and now if I do Python -- version, I'll actually have the version of Python 3.10, and now I'm happy. It'll allow me to switch between different versions if I have an old Python 3.10 project. And that's very interesting. So now it's not over. The path variable is quite special because if I go, I'm going to reopen this variable here. For example, I'll copy the path to Python 3.11 and I'll add it here to the list of paths in my system's path variable. Here it is. Well, what's going to happen is that right now I've got Python 3.10, which is taken into account on this old command line if I reload, so it'll be updated. And now if I type Python -- version, I now have 3.11.2, which is taken into account. So why? Because the path variable is quite specific. And in this case, it's the path system variables that take precedence. In relation to the user variable, this will enable the administrator to do so if he wants to specify a version of Python, and users won't be able to get their hands on it. Well, that's about it for this episode. Thank you and see you soon for more videos.